Hey, welcome. I'm glad that you're here. Today, we're going to be spending a few minutes together considering what isn't in our lives. Most of the time, when we think of expressing thanks, it's for the gifts that we have: food, shelter, provision, family. And it can feel more natural to consider what isn't in our lives as things to pray for. But sometimes gifts from God are in what we don't have, so we can give thanks for what isn't in our lives. Think back to your life in a difficult season. Maybe it was just a hard time, or it could be before you received salvation. Here are some questions to help you reflect on past times. What are some of the not great things that used to be your norm that are totally absent from your life now? What trajectory was your life on before God intervened? Think about how you have changed and grown since that past season, maybe even from who you were as a teen to who you are now. What's something you used to struggle with that you don't any longer? Or what's a lie that you long believed but you don't tolerate anymore? How has God transformed you as a new creation? Or maybe you can think of a time that God rescued you. Again, this could be salvation, or it could be when He opened your eyes to a dangerous path you were on. What difficulty had you previously accepted as just your lot in life, and God brought you truth and freedom? One example for me is in quieting my internal self critic. My husband Jared and I were reading the book The Road Back to You, which is a Christian author's perspective on the Enneagram. And I know Enneagram can be controversial, so if you don't love it, just stick with me here. We were learning about our personalities, and as an Enneagram 1, my natural internal self critic is super loud. Jared is an Enneagram 7, and his self critic is not. We were reading an example of how our personality types may respond differently when we're leaving a party. Jared would think about what was fun and wonder how to make things even more fun in the future. I would wonder about if I sounded stupid or how I came across, and often worry that I should call and apologize to someone if a thing I said came across in a way I didn't mean, and maybe they could have interpreted it in an inaccurate way that I didn't think about at the time, but was now stressing about much after the fact. Seriously. If you can relate, let me know that you're out there. And also, this was a light bulb moment when I realized for the first time that I didn't have to let my internal critic be so loud. Thinking about the fun stuff sounded way more fun. And so I started on a journey of retraining that inner critical voice. And I'm so grateful that my inner self critic is much quieter, kinder, and doesn't boss me around now like it used to. The whole of Psalm 107 is powerful to read and study. And I'll read a longer portion of scripture today, but for the sake of time, I'm not reading the whole psalm out loud. I'll be reading Psalm 107, verses 1 through 9, and then skipping down to read verse 43. As I read, invite God to help you recall what once was in your life and what isn't any longer. Oh, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his steadfast love endures forever. Let the redeemed of the Lord say so, whom he has redeemed from trouble and gathered from the lands, from the east and from the west, from the north and from the south. Some wandered in desert wastes, finding no way to a city to dwell in. Hungry and thirsty, their soul fainted within them. Then they cried to the Lord in their trouble, and he delivered them from their distress. He led them by a straight way till they reached a city to dwell in. Let them thank the Lord for his steadfast love, for his wondrous works to the children of man. For he satisfies the longing soul, and the hungry soul he fills with good things. Whoever is wise, let him attend to these things. Let them consider the steadfast love of the Lord. What incredible act of God's steadfast love that we can think back on and we can celebrate. Also, we don't have to stop with only the goodness that we can think of. There's things that you and I will never think to notice, stuff totally off of our radar that God just took care of for us. Let's ask Him to bring those things to remembrance and maybe even share something you never noticed before. Like how we end every episode, here's a question to go ask God. God, will you show me something good about my life today that is different from the life I once lived or the path I was on before? Whatever he shows you, don't treat that insight like the end of the conversation. Express gratitude and talk more about it. Here's that question one more time. God, will you show me something good about my life today that is different from the life I once lived or the path I was on before? Have a good talk.